Greetings, everybody. This is Dr. Ronald J. Briwn. There's a picture of me on the right. And our topic for today is Ramadan, celebrating the Quran. Well, the Quran, as you probably know, is a centerpiece of the Islamic religion of Muslims. And it is rather unique among holy books, as we are going to find out. So our outline for today is the power of a book. Why religions tend to have a holy book. What's the power of a book? What did the book replace when it started evolving as a centerpiece of religions? When you think of Catholics or Protestants who go to church, well, they're not sacrificing animals on an altar and sprinkling everybody with blood, nor are Jews, nor are Muslims. So the book replaced animal sacrifice, animal replaced human sacrifice. So the book has a good pedigree. Secondly, the Quran. How did it happen? Its origins, its history. Then the emergence of the holiday of Ramadan, which is a lengthy, a month-long period with all of its own elaborate rituals, as complex as the Jewish Passover or the Christian Christmas or Easter. These are, every holiday tends to attract a lot of foods and traditions and music and ceremonies. Ramadan in New York, it's again with the rise of the Islamic community in the United States, and especially New York, Ramadan is becoming an issue in the city of New York. And finally, Muslims and 9/11, a fierce backlash against the Muslims in the United States, spearheaded by especially Donald Trump in his so-called Muslim ban. So we have a lot on our plate for today. So let's begin. Books are one of what I have called the universal building blocks of all religions. Religions, and we tend to celebrate the differences and the uniqueness of each religion, but they all share a basic architecture, certain basic elements that are in every religion, whether they are celebrated or whether they are just downright rejected. Still, it plays a major part. For example, clothes. Look at the Hasidic Jews from Eastern Europe with the big woolly hats. Well, that's definitely a part of their religion. Think of the pictures of popes and bishops, chief rabbis, Buddhist monks parading around in their orange or brown robes. Think of Hindu women with their veils, or Muslim women, some completely covered with clothing. Hats, yarmulkes, the Pope's hats. I mean, this is a universal part of all religions. Architecture. Well, as soon as you have a religion and it starts growing, you're going to have to build a building, whether it's a Gothic cathedral, whether it's a mosque or a Buddhist temple, you're going to have some type of place. And each religion develops its own unique architecture. Food. Food is central. Think of Christmas cookies, the Easter bunny traditions of not eating the Easter bunny, but of eating ham for Easter. Jews with their kosher, Muslims with their halal, Hindus with their vegetarianism. Even the Christian Eucharist is around food. Passover meal, where wine and bread were central elements in the religion. And finally, water. Think of the Christian baptism, the Jewish mikvah, Muslims washing their hands, their feet, and their face before they go into a mosque. Picture in the middle shows the burning ghats at Varanasi in India, where dead bodies are brought, burned with fire, and the ashes thrown into the river. And that picture highlights another element of all religions is fire, whether it's lighting candles in a synagogue or in a church, burning of bodies. Sun is what is represented by a fire. So every religion has these universal building blocks. Now on the right, you see a statue of the Buddha. Catholics love statues. Churches are filled with them. Protestants rejected statues because Catholics they accused of worshiping the statues. So while most Protestant churches don't have statues, they have developed a whole anti-statue theology, as have Jews, rejecting the statue worship of the Babylonians, the Canaanites, and the Egyptians. They made statues a central part of Judaism, not in accepting them, but in vehemently rejecting them. Other universal building blocks, music, whether it is the drums and the trumpets of the Tibetan Buddhists, whether it is a church bell, an organ, whether it is a chanting of the Quran in the mosque, whether it is the rhythmic reading of the Torah in a synagogue. This is part of music. Think of Handel's Messiah, glorious orchestral music. Another universal building block is hair. Think of the Buddhist monks and nuns who shave their head. My aunt was a Catholic nun. She shaved her head and put on her veil. Orthodox Jewish women wearing the shmatter on their head to cover their hair. Hair is reserved for their husbands only. Orthodox men, Muslim, Jewish, beards, Jewish side curls. Hair is a very important part of every world religion. The body, tattoos, circumcision. This is what is the celebration of the body. The ritual bathing of the body by Jews in a mikvah. Muslim men washing their bodies before they go to the mosque. Another universal building block is clergy. As soon as a religion merges and becomes important, you're going to have Buddhist monks. You're going to have Catholic bishops. You're going to have chief rabbis of synagogues and chief rabbis of Israel. Buddhist monks and every other person going up sometime to having a patriarch, a Russian Orthodox patriarch of Moscow. Clergy is a necessary part for every emerging religion. As are holidays. Holidays are central to every religion. Think of the Chinese New Year, American Christmas, Happy Diwali among Hindus, Yom Kippur. Each holiday has a special function, and they are essential. It brings together the followers of a religion. So when it is the Jewish Yom Kippur, Jews come together. And there are no Christians or Muslims or Hindus or Buddhists or anybody else there. It is a time when followers of a religion gather together, even if they live in a mega city like New York City. On Yom Kippur, the Jews separate themselves from the rest of the community. They go to their synagogues. Chinese New Year, once again, even though it is celebrated everywhere, it is still the Chinese New Year with all of the foods, the rituals, the fun, the parades, the dragons. Once again, central. Christmas, very important. And it has a very important function too, because like most holidays, it is educational. Even though it is Merry Christmas and has become secularized with Christmas trees and everything, still, it is the Mass of Christ. You see in displays baby Jesus with the camels and the three kings, and everybody knows Mary and Joseph, mom and dad. And so holidays are not just fun. They not only bring the followers together, but they are also educational. Diwali, the Hindu festival of the fall. Once again, Hindu areas are decorated with lights, with candles, celebrating the presence of Hindus in a mega city. Well, the book is a central universal building block of all religions, but it wasn't always so. In the very beginning, human sacrifice, burning of crops in veneration of the various gods was very important. The Aztec great ceremonies in what is today Mexico City, reports say thousands of men would be sacrificed, their bleeding hearts still pumping blood, torn out of their chests and offered as sacrifices to the gods. Why did they do this? Well, they didn't know what causes the sun to go down. They were never sure that it was going to come up again next morning. They never knew if the rains were going to be the right amount for the crops and not too much to cause flooding. Victory in warfare over their enemies. You had to appease the gods of your tribe, of your people. Well, gradually, human sacrifices were replaced with animal sacrifices. The Jewish temple in Jerusalem, everybody knows, had its Holy of Holies, sacrificing unblemished cows and other animals. This was part of the temple worship to appease an angry Jehovah, to make sure that Jehovah looked favorably on his chosen people. Eventually, animals were sacrificed, but gave away to sacrificing the first fruits. In Proverbs, honor the Lord with your substance and with the first fruits of all your increase. Once again, moving away from animal sacrifice and sacrificing your first fruits. In Islam, sacrifice is called zakat. It is like a tax which all good Muslims are required to contribute to the Muslim community. It is like tithing in a lot of Protestant churches, and especially Mormon churches, which are very big on taxing the Mormon population. But animal sacrifice, even human sacrifice, is not totally disappeared. The Christian Mass, the Catholic Mass, the Eucharist is offering the blood and the body of Jesus. And even the priest and the followers consume the body and drink the blood of their God. So here again, we see that even though religions have long evolved from the age of human sacrifice, still it has been domesticated, it has been routinized, still reminding us that long before we were giving 10% of our income as tithes, or marching off to war and giving our lives as a martyr for our gods, human sacrifice and animal sacrifice still remain part of our religious heritages. Well, the next step in the evolution of religions was going away with sacrifices, going away with temples and burning bodies of animals and humans and crops. And it was a worship of the book. The oldest religious scriptures we have are in ancient Sumer, which is okay, up in Babylon, Turkey, and Syria, where we see the cuneiform inscriptions of the prayers that were to be said. On the right, you see the famous Egyptian Book of the Dead, 2400 BC. This is 4,500 years ago, where prayers and rituals were conducted to usher the Pharaoh and his chosen few through the underworld. So it's a book of prayers, incantations, magical formulas. Other texts were written and these were recited. So even though the Egyptians were still sacrificing animals, no longer humans as far as we know, gradually a new form of religion was emerging, and this was a religion of books, of prayers, of hymns, of rituals. The Hindu Gita, 200 BC, were the oldest of the Hindu texts. Now, of course, the Hindus, like everybody else, went through the stages of human, animal, crop sacrifices. But the Gita is considered today to be a very old written text of oral stories that go back thousands of years. The Jews, even though they were still sacrificing animals in the temple, gradually started compiling a book that became central to the Jewish religion after the Second Temple was destroyed and the Jews sent into the diaspora, with the exception of Egypt and Ethiopia and to some extent Central Asia and India. Most Jews did not seek to rebuild temples and start sacrificing animals and crops again. Gradually, Judaism abandoned these, and it became a religion of the book. Of course, Christians came along, and their central text was the Christian Bible, formally established by the Council of Rome in 382, what books were in and what books were out. But even this book was highly contested. Greek Orthodox decided, well, we don't like what the Romans are doing. We'll have our own authoritative collection of books and chapters. Various churches, such as Syriac, Coptic, Ethiopian churches, made up their own holy book, containing still other ancient books that the Catholics in Western Europe had rejected. And this diversity of Christian Bibles continues until today. The Ethiopian Bible is a New Testament is almost twice as long as the New Testament used in Catholic and Protestant churches. Martin Luther gave big impetus to the book and book-centered religion when he gave the green light to translate the book from a sacred language, Latin, into the vernacular. And here we see Biblia. Das ist im Ganzen göttliche heilige Schrift, Alten und Neuen Testaments, Bible, the entire divine, holy scriptures, Old and New Testaments, by Dr. Martin Luther. Well, this was an explosion in Bible-centered religion. Suddenly, it was no longer in the sacred language of Latin, but it was translated into English, into Czech, into Polish, into French, German, Swedish, every other language. Of course, this was resisted by church hierarchies who wanted to keep it in the sacred dead language of Latin so that only the priests could read it. But still, with the translation under Martin Luther and its wide printing, it started transforming Christianity. On the right, we see the 1611 edition of the King James Version of the Christian Bible. In the middle, the Book of Mormon. Here again, new religions, you have to have a book. So if anybody out there is planning to start a new religion or declare themselves a prophet or a god, get ready, because you need a book. And so the Book of Mormon was created, and this was in the 1830s and 40s. It's not a long time ago, but it shows how deeply this need for a book has penetrated world religions. So that brings us up to the Quran. The Quran claims, and Muslims believe, that the Quran was not written by humans. It was not written by people like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, or Moses, or Isaiah, or other humans. It was a direct revelation from God to the angel Gabriel, and the angel Gabriel recited it to the prophet Muhammad, as you see in the picture on the left. It's the angel Gabriel and the prophet. And it was revealed 610 to 632. 632 is the year that the prophet Muhammad died. So the Quran is the only book that claims to be divine revelation. Some Jews and Christians and Hindus claim that their holy books were inspired, or use some other rather vague term. Even the Jewish Bible claims that all over the place, and God said too. Well, this was written by a person, and so maybe that person had very good reasons to alter the text or to ignore certain revelations, or was it just a writing device to give something a little bit of authority? But the Quran never had that problem. From the very beginning, it claimed it was the word of God, revealed from God to the angel Gabriel, who then revealed it in person to the prophet Muhammad, who eventually wrote it down in the Arab script, which you see below it. It was revealed in chapters. Some of the chapters are one sentence long. Some of the chapters are several pages. This is one of the surah, which is a chapter, and it is rather lengthy. So it was direct revelation from God. Well, Jews already have claimed that their Torah is of divine origin. But it does nowhere, and this is from a Jewish scholarly text, it says nowhere does the broader Bible suggest that it was all written by God. Few passages attributes authorship of some of its sections to God, but these are few and far between. The Christian Bible recognizes that it was written by humans, and those who organized it, who decided which books were going to be included in the Bible, were inspired by God, and their writings may be designated in some sense the Word of God. Well, these are two very poor substitutes for the direct revelation of every word, every letter, every comma in the Quran. The Quran claims that it is the final revelation of God. Now, when Islam was emerging, the Prophet was alive and receiving these revelations. The central theme was that God has been active in human affairs. When God created Adam and Eve, even kicked them out of the garden, still God was working over the thousands of years to restore humanity to its position as a good, unsinning people. And so God periodically sent prophets. Muslims consider Adam a prophet, Enoch and Noah. These are the English names for these. Hebrew and Arabic are a bit different. And then a whole series of other prophets we would recognize on the left: Ishmael, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Jonah, Joseph, Moses, Aaron, Elias, Elisha. These we would recognize. We would recognize the prophet Muhammad. Other prophets are not known to Christians. It would be Silah, Hud, Lot, which we recognize, and Shaib, and other individuals who we would recognize: Joseph, David, Solomon, John, Jesus, Zechariah, Isaiah. These are all names, some of which we're familiar. And the Muslims say that each of these prophets were given a message to preach, to try to shape humans up, abandon idol worship, start accepting God, start being good and holy people. Well, as you can see from the list of prophets, a lot of prophets were sent, and they each revealed something, but humans made a mess of things. For example, with Abraham. Well, he was the founder of the Jewish people, but Muslims believe that the revelations and the covenant between Abraham and God was not to be limited to his tribe or his family, but the God, Jehovah, was to be a God for all of humanity. But the Muslims say Abraham messed it up and turned it into a religion restricted for Jews, a tribal religion, even a racist religion. So Abraham made progress, but screwed it up. When we go down to Jesus, the bottom on the right, Jesus once again inherited all the teachings of David and Solomon and Isaac and Jacob and Noah and accepted them. But the Christian church, which emerged from the teachings of Jesus, once again screwed everything up. They made Jesus not into a prophet, but into the Son of God. And so this new Christian church ended up abandoning monotheism and creating three gods: God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Ghost. So the Christians messed it up. Well, Muhammad was the last of the prophets, and he was the one who was going to get everything right. Well, the Quran, that was revealed by God to the angel Gabriel and then to the prophet Muhammad, contains 114 surahs or chapters. The first surah is called Al-Fatiha, which comes from the Arabic word to open. I remember when I lived in the Middle East, people are always yelling, Iftah al-Bab, Sakar al-Bab, meaning open, Iftah al-Bab, or close the door. So the first one is the opening. The Quran instructs in Surah 13 that the Quran is to be recited in a slow, measured, rhythmic tones, almost chanted. The first surah is the most famous because it opens the whole thing. With the name of Allah, the All-Merciful and Very Merciful, praise belongs to Allah, the one and only God. And this is the one which is commonly recited at meetings and at mosque prayer services. How it is recited, since it is the word of God directly revealed, it just you're not reading it like you would a Stephen King novel or even the Christian Bible, the way people just simply open it and read a chapter. It is read in a very slow, measured, rhythmic tone, meaning it is chant. So it is a form of music. There are 10 schools of recitation. And on the left, you see a woman reciting it from memory. You notice she doesn't have a book because memorizing the Quran is very important for Muslims. On the right, you see a program, 2 free classes, live sessions, male and female tutors, certificates, mastering one of the 10 or several of the 10 schools of recitation. Reciting the Quran in the correct way is central to Islam. You see series. Here, for example, this is a Sunday circle of reciting the Quran with a very famous recitation master, Sheikh Zahir Bakus. And you see it's divided up into 7-week course, Saturday morning, lasting for about 3 weeks or 7 weeks. And this class was open to all adult women, where reciting this sacred book is part of the cultural heritage of Islam, which doesn't exist in Christianity. The only time you hear measured recitation would be in a monastery where you'd hear monks singing the Psalms in a Gregorian chant style. The Quran makes it very clear, meaning God said, we have revealed this text in Arabic. Surah 3, we have appointed it a lecture in Arabic that haply may ye conceive by understanding. A lecture in Arabic we revealed containing no crookedness, which haply they may ward off. Well, the true Spirit hath brought down upon thy heart that thou mayest be one with the warners in plain Arabic speech. Now, nowhere in the Christian Bible does it say that there is a sacred language, another one of these universal building blocks of religion. But from the very beginning, Arabic was chosen because it is straightforward, plain Arabic speech that everyone could understand. No crookedness, no tricks or anything like that. Now, the Christian Bible was written in Greek. Jesus spoke Aramaic. The Hebrew Bible was written in biblical Hebrew. So there was no original sacred language, although Jews, with the destruction of the temple and the diaspora, turned Hebrew into a sacred language. And the Catholic Church made the Latin translation as a sacred book. But yet, reading, even preaching from either the Quran, or either from the Jewish Bible or the Christian Bible, can be done in any language. So when Martin Luther translated the Bible into German, he was not violating any rules. But worship in Arabic only is permitted in the mosque, no American English or French or Spanish. So sacred language is one of those building blocks of religion. Now, some religions have them. Christianity still venerates the Latin to a certain extent, and Orthodox have great respect for the Greek. But gradually, the books were translated into other languages. We see Sanskrit, which is a dead language, only scholars study it, but it is considered a sacred language because it is dead. Latin has a certain mystical, magical aura because it too is dead. In the middle, you see a text from Ethiopia in Ge'ez, another dead language that the Ethiopian Bible was written in, which is still used in religious services and recited by highly trained priests because Ge'ez is considered a dead language. And finally, on the right, you see Old Church Slavonic, the first written form of what is today Russian, Polish, Czech, Bulgarian, Serbian. And this was used and still is used in many churches as a sacred language. But of course, none of these were commissioned or ordered by God to be used, whereas Arabic clearly was. Classical Arabic derived from the Quran. This is what people study in school. Now, most Arabs will speak a dialect or an accent. You can recognize an Egyptian accent from an Iraqi accent, a Palestinian accent from a Moroccan accent. But still, the language they study in school is classical Arabic. And that's what is used on the modern TV, radio, internet. We have the BBC Arabic, Al Jazeera in Arabic. France 24 has its French Arabic channels. So Arabic plays a much more important role in Islam than any other sacred language does, because it was, according to the Quran, commanded and chosen by God. And this sacredness of language and writing has made it into an art form. Calligraphy is writing in Arabic. Each of these pictures is Arabic. They can be read. Now, of course, the lion figure in the left is not really a lion. It is just a sentence from the Quran written with fancy, fancy letters, just as the one at the top, typical Ottoman Turkish script, it is written. And you find writings like this inside of mosques. Since statues were forbidden, calligraphy replaced statues as the art form inside of mosques. Another point about the Quran is that it is a religion, is not a religion, but it is a way of life. Like Orthodox Judaism, Muslims believe that this is not just a thing of going to the mosque or the synagogue and praying, but the Jewish Bible, like the Quran, have passages regulating every aspect of daily life, from what to believe to how to worship. Social organization, separation of men and women, legislation. Ten Commandments is a book of laws, what you should do, what you should not do. The book of Deuteronomy, Devarim, is filled with rules regulating harvesting crops, getting married, getting a divorce, raising kids, what you should wear, what you shouldn't wear, what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat. Even government. The Jewish Bible makes very clear the rise of Saul, David, and Solomon as kings, replacing the previous rulers of judges. The Quran also accepts Prophet Muhammad as the first leader, followed by a chain of caliphs, which go down to 1924, when it was abolished by Britain, the United States, and Turkey. Both the Quran and the Jewish Bible prescribe holidays. There's nothing in the Christian Bible about celebrating Easter. There are no Easter bunnies or Easter chocolates. There are no Christmas trees. In fact, the date of Jesus's birth is not even contained in the Bible. Nobody knows when it was. We arbitrarily chose December 25th. Both Quran and the Jewish Bible, as well as the Hindu Gita, as well as the teachings of Confucius, clearly elaborate every aspect of your daily life, even to the point of warfare. Probably the most bloody religious book ever written is the Jewish Bible. Killed with genocides, mass slaughter, the Battle of Jericho, David exterminating the Jebusites when he conquered Jerusalem. I mean, a bloody book. So, how to wage war, what to wear, what to drink, what to eat, how to celebrate holidays is contained in Judaism, is contained in Islam, as well as Hinduism, Confucianism. These are the so-called religions that are more than that. They are a way of life. A central concept in Islam is the ummah. Ummah means the Islamic nation or the Muslim nation. And from the map, you see that it goes from Indonesia the whole way across to Morocco, down to Nigeria, and up to Kazakhstan in Russia. So you may view yourself as a Kazakh citizen, or as a Pakistani, or an Algerian, or a Russian, or an Indonesian. But underlying this is an identity of all Muslims, similar to an extent to Christendom, meaning the lands and people of Christ. But in Islam, it is much more powerful because it had the ruler under the caliphs until 1924, where even Indonesia would recognize a spiritual and to an extent political authority of the last caliph in Istanbul until that post was abolished. Pilgrimage to Mecca, ordered in the Quran, and Hajj, which is the Arabic word for pilgrimage to Mecca, is the duty that mankind owes to Allah for those who are able to undertake the journey. Today, it is generally assumed that all able-bodied adults should make the Hajj at least once in their lives. This is Mecca and Medina, the two sacred cities. And you see how huge this pilgrimage has become, centered around the Kaaba, the black stone, which Muslims believed was the house of Abraham, located in the center. Now to the holiday of Ramadan. Well, where does the word Ramadan comes from? Some people argue that it comes from the Arabic word for ham, as in hammam, ham in Hebrew, which means to become intensely hot, burning, scorching, blazing, glowing. And the Quran clearly states that during this month, you must not eat, not even drink water. But if you are sick or on a journey, you could celebrate the Ramadan at another time. And it says this is not to be a burden. It is to enlighten you, to glorify Allah, and to celebrate the revelation of the Quran from God directly to the angel Gabriel and then to the prophet. So it is a holiday mandated in the Quran, very much like Passover is mandated in the Jewish Bible, but no holidays are mandated in the Christian Bible. Other things are. For example, baptism is mandated. Celebrating the Eucharist is mandated, which has then been assigned to Sunday, but that was an arbitrary decision taken by the early Christians, and it was not to be a holiday, it was just to be a ceremony. Now, the Muslims follow the lunar calendar, not the solar, the sun calendar, and they have elaborated a very strict system for when the various prayers are to be celebrated. And so you can see from the picture on the right, down to the minute with an electric clock below it, so that you know what time each day the prayers are to be said 5 times a day. Now, of course, this varies because in the spring, the days get longer, and so the sunrise is earlier and the sunset is later. And you can see some of the differences in time might only be 2 minutes or even less from one day to the next. But here on the left, you see a time schedule for the prayers. Now, this is for Leeds in England. On the right is what you would see in a mosque, so that when you walk in, there is a sign that says you have 1 minute to begin your prayers. Now, Ramadan follows the lunar calendar. On the right, you see a sign that says the crescent moon was seen in Saudi Arabia today. Subsequently, the month of Shaban completes 29 days today, and tomorrow, that is Saturday, 2nd of April, 2022, there will be the first day of Ramadan, year 1443. So when do you begin Ramadan? Well, it varies according to the cycle of the moon. Now, on the left, you can see just a small list of the calendar, beginning in the year 2010, which is a Muslim 1431, since the revelation of Islam, August, then it jumps to July, then June, then May, then April, then March. So it can be any time of the year, but it is the same time of year according to the lunar calendar. Now, the Jews also follow the lunar calendar with their different months, their year, since what they measure as the creation of the world and the creation of Adam. The Christians, though, follow the solar calendar. So Christmas is always in the middle of winter, December 25th, and that does not change. Although Easter follows the lunar calendar, and so Easter will generally be sometime in the spring from March and April. Now, the Muslims fast from the first day of Ramadan for 1 month. Now, it is a fast from dawn, which means they eat a big meal before the rising sun, and then they have another meal with the setting of the sun. And this is part of the daily fasting ritual. But then at the end of the holiday, the 1 month long fasting period and holiday of Ramadan, the Eid al-Fitr is the big feast to mark the end of the month-long Ramadan figure. So this would be as festive as Easter dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, the Passover meal. Everybody dresses up, and it is just a fantastic celebration of food. Of course, no wine, since Muslims are forbidden by the Quran to drink wine, although Christians and Jews drink wine, whiskey, and everything. There's no problem. So food, once again, those universal building blocks of religion, is central to the morning, early morning meal, the evening meal after the sunset, and the Eid al-Fitr, the ending of the month period. Now, of course, every country, every tribe of people, you could also say, has their own traditions of food. Sort of like Americans love eggnog and chocolate for Christmas. Jews have their own pastries and their matzah. Hindus would stick to vegetarian food. And so every Muslim country has their own food. In Asia would be rice cakes and a more Asian food. In the United States, it might be steak, halal steak with orange juice or Coca-Cola. Street vendors prepare food and delicacies and pastries, which the feasting at the end of Ramadan is a major money earner for many of these people. Eid al-Adha is another part of the Ramadan celebration. It honors the willingness of Ibrahim, who Abraham in the Jewish Bible, to sacrifice his son Ishmael as an act of obedience to God's command. Well, here again, we see human sacrifice popping up again in Judaism, but it wasn't carried out. And so it was replaced with animal sacrifice. So we see this universal building blocks emerging in obscure places. And so at the end of Ramadan, you see herds of goats being driven into the cities and being slaughtered. And a third of the meat is for the family, and another third is given to relatives, and another third is given to poor people. So the end of Ramadan month, pastries, food, new clothing, festive occasions, new hats for the men, pastries of every kind and every taste are available. In the United States, it's even become popular to send Ramadan greeting cards like you would for Christmas. Christmas card, Hallmark cards are big. Once again, the commercialization of the holiday, like with new clothes and toys for the kids and food. Well, holiday cards are common. On the right, you see Ramadan Mubarak. Mubarak comes from the word blessing. When somebody sneezes, you say Mabruk, which is our equivalent of God bless you. Ramadan, the mosques are filled. Even if you are not a great mosque attender, you go to the mosque during the holiday. And here you see the barrier down the middle, men on one side and women on the other side, separation, because you are bending over, touching your forehead to the floor, and you don't want to see a woman in front of you with to be distracted. So in this mosque, you see it is a division down the middle, one half for men, one half for women. In other mosques, the women will be separated on a balcony area or behind a curtain so that they can pray toward the front of the mosque, but yet not be distracted by men. So like every holiday, money takes over, whether it's Mother's Day with chocolate and gifts to the spa and all kinds of new clothing and flowers and diamonds, or Christmas with chocolate and games, or Hanukkah with the famous Hanukkah Geld, which is now computer and cars. Well, commercialization of Ramadan is taking place. You see Ramadan nights at the Meridian Hotel, Beach Resort and Marina, where they will cater to the ending of Ramadan. They'll have a big prayer area, since with so many people going to the mosque, very often mosques will overflow into the streets, and the police will block off an entire section of the city, which will be filled with praying people facing the direction of Mecca. Ramadan in New York City is becoming part of the landscape of New York City. First lighting in green, which is the sacred color of Islam, was on October 12th, 2007. Now, the Empire State Building, as I speak, it is Gay Pride, so it is multicolored, and it will be a different color for various official holidays. And Ramadan is now recognized as an official New York holiday because of the large Muslim population. On the right, you see Times Square, which at the end of Ramadan will be blocked off, and tens of thousands of Muslims will worship in this very big open public space. Now, of course, this has to have the agreement of the mayor, the governor, the mobilization of the police department, because any holiday like this can turn violent with anti-Muslim people or terrorists or who knows what. There are an estimated 1.5 million Muslims in New York City, 9% of the population, and an estimated 4 million in the United States. They are largely the product of the opening of the gates of immigration in 1965. Look at the chart, you see very limited migration to the United States until 1970, and then it taking off. Well, before 1965, the immigration to America was severely restricted. After World War I, almost no more immigrants came over, and the gates of immigration were firmly slammed closed in 1924. One of the reasons why so many Jews were lost in the Holocaust is because the United States refused to let them in the United States, and many of them were stranded in Germany, especially from Eastern Europe, couldn't get out, further giving rise to increased anti-Semitism in Germany, because all of these Eastern European Orthodox Yiddish-speaking Jews were literally stranded in Germany and Austria. And of course, Hitler was from Vienna and saw the giant camps for Eastern European Jews doing anything they could to survive, which is one of those causes of the Holocaust, which is not generally analyzed. Well, with the opening of immigration, that's when all the Mexicans, Latin Americans, Africans, Chinese, Koreans, Indians, Vietnamese started flooding into the United States. The Muslims, of course, were from Africa, many from Senegal, Nigeria, immigrants from the Arab world, from Algeria, Palestinian refugees from Israel, Iraq, Turkey, and Muslims from India and Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia. In fact, the mosques of New York today are divided ethnically, just like the Catholic churches. You'd have an Italian Catholic church, a German Catholic church, a French Catholic church, a Polish Catholic church. Well, mosques are still divided in that way in New York, where you'd have a Pakistani mosque, an Afghani mosque, a Nigerian mosque, a Senegalese mosque. Ramadan became part of the New York school list of religious observances which were to be honored. This was 1997. You can see an article from the New York Times, where Muslim students and Muslims in general are required to pray 5 times a day. They had to be given an excuse. Now, the Muslim prayers do not last for an hour. A Muslim memorizes the prayers, could basically go into another room, and in 5 minutes, this brief prayer would be finished. They had to be given a place for it. You're not going to go to the back of the classroom. You're going to have a special room, which would be open for Orthodox Jews, if there were any in the school, or Hindus, or Muslims, or anybody else to use for prayers. Ramadan is recognized as a holiday, and since students don't go to the cafeteria at lunch, some accommodation has to be made for them to stay in the classroom with a proctor or a teacher. Sports, are girls going to go around in a bathing suit when they have swimming? Will their restrictions on exposing their bodies be respected? What about the separation of boys and girls? If you have 2 kids per desk and a Muslim girl says, I will only be seated beside another girl, that has to be respected. What about the prom? Dancing, alcohol, what kind of dancing or going on a date with a man, a boy who you are not related to, would that exclude Muslim girls and boys from going to the prom? And of course, recently, the harassment of Muslims because of 9/11 and the war in Iraq. This has been a major problem. How do you protect Muslims from harassment? How would you protect Jews or Black people or gays and lesbians from harassment? So the Islam question has become a major issue for the school system. Another big event is when the government will officially recognize a particular holiday or event. And here you see Mayor Bloomberg's recognition in 2017 of the city's vibrant and growing Muslim community. And he concludes, I hope this festive month brings peace and happiness to everyone who is celebrating. Ramadan Mubarak, meaning happy Ramadan. So when you have the mayor or the governor or even the president recognizing a holiday, this is an important step. Now, American government has a very strange history of holidays. Most of our holidays, which we all celebrate today, such as Thanksgiving, began as a small New England holiday, and it was only recognized by the federal government as a national holiday during the Civil War as a way of uniting the North and the South. Christmas was illegal in Boston. It was frowned upon in New York because since there's no official date in the Bible, then December 25th is an arbitrary pagan influenced date for Jesus's birth. So Baptists, Methodists, Puritans did not celebrate Christmas. And it was only recently that a lot of these churches have even recognized the December 25th Christmas as a religious holiday. Here we see the list of federal holidays and when they are celebrated. Now, these are federal holidays, and you can see gradually a list is expanding: Labor Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Martin Luther King Day, a recent addition, Independence Day, dating back to the 1870s. But Ramadan is not yet recognized as a federal holiday. Federal holiday means the post office is closed. Federal holiday means federal government offices are closed. And once a holiday is recognized by the federal government, most states accept it, most towns do as well. Now, there are certain public holidays which are recognized by the federal government, but they are regulated by each state. And 3 of them are Ramadan, and the Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr are recognized as 3 public holidays. Now in New York, they are highly respected and celebrated. But if you go to a state where there are only 10 Muslims, the state probably wasn't even aware of what Ramadan is. Now, other public holidays include Mardi Gras, St. Patrick's Day, Easter, Passover, Yom Kippur. And each state, and very often each municipality, each city, each school district celebrates them in the way they want to. For example, if you live in a town where there are lots of Irish, well, school may be suspended for St. Patrick's Day at the discretion of the school district or even sometimes the principal. Public displays have become a part of areas where there are large numbers of Muslims. Here we see in April 2021 in Brooklyn, they put up signs, Happy Ramadan. Now at Christmas, it'll be Merry Christmas. Maybe at Passover, it'll be Happy Passover. I don't know. I've seen the Christmas decorations. I've seen Ramadan decorations. They probably put something up for St. Patrick's Day. They might put something up for Kwanzaa. These are very common. Public displays in store windows. Very often we see a Christmas tree in one window and a Hanukkah for the Jews in another one. More and more, at Ramadan, you will see a store window devoting a window to Ramadan. Now, of course, this is to attract more business, but still, it shows a public acceptance of the holiday. United Muslim Day Parade. First parade was September 1985. Now, this is very important because, as you can see from the pictures, Muslims come from all over the world. You can see that the people on the float on the left, the speaker, who I know, is from Indonesia. On the right, you can see from the hat that the guy's wearing, he's probably from Afghanistan or Pakistan. So every national group joins in the United Muslim Day Parade. And this is a poster, once again, stressing the unity of Muslims, the Ummah, saying we must unite under Islam, not under a flag of one country or the other. We should be Muslim first, and then American or Pakistani or Palestinian or Saudi secondly. Here again, the same process happened with the Catholic immigration, where when I was growing up, you had a Polish Catholic Church, an Italian Catholic Church, a German Catholic Church, Irish Catholic Church. Today you have Hispanic Catholic churches, Filipino Catholic churches, African Catholic churches. But gradually they merge into an American Catholic Church where you have Germans marrying Irish. When my brother, German background like me, married his wife, who was Cuban, my father was very upset, saying, couldn't he find a nice German background girl to marry? But then he said, but at least she's Catholic. She's not a Jew or a Muslim or a heathen, as he would phrase it. So it was keeping it in the religion, and religion transcended ethnic group. And so you see that the Muslim Day Parade is once again a public manifestation of the Muslim presence in New York and in the United States. 1990, another sign of the merging of Muslims was the Islamic Culture Center. Every particular country donated something. One country would donate the carpets. Another country would pay for the dome. Another country would pay for the stained glass windows. And so it became a pan-Muslim effort. On the left, you see one of the parade symbols, and that is the mosque in Jerusalem. Constantly in the news, battles between Jews and Muslims fighting over control of what is called the Sacred Mount. Well, this is another symbol which unites all Muslims. Occupied Palestine, Jerusalem under Israeli occupation, ethnic cleansing of Muslims from Jerusalem and Palestine, second-rate status. So it's one of those themes which unites Muslims, even though they are sorely divided on what they should do to liberate Palestine and Jerusalem and return the 6 million Palestinian refugees to their homeland. Still, it is another symbol of the unity of the Muslim world. 9/11 was traumatic for Muslims. I was in New York and I witnessed the destruction of the World Trade Center, even taking pictures. Well, the perpetrators of this terrorist crime were Muslims. And It set off a vicious anti-Muslim backlash in the United States, accusing all Muslims of being terrorists. And so you see a Muslim with his beard and his turban, but his turban is really a time bomb. This was a very difficult time for Muslims around the world. President George W. Bush recognized on September 2nd, 2001, that Muslims were a growing presence in the United States, and in a way tried to welcome them into the American melting pot or salad bowl with this famous stamp celebrating Ramadan in September 2nd, 2001. Here again, showing that Muslims are part of American society. But then, of course, September 11 happened 10 days later, and vicious anti-Muslim persecution. Islamophobic and proud of it. Quran in the toilet paper with verses from the Quran. Muslims were attacked in the streets. Muslims were being harassed in schools, and a vicious anti-Islamic campaign. Books. Survivor of Islamic Terror warns America, Muslims hate America. Al-Qaeda denounced as a terrorist organization. Books such as the one on the right, Islamic Terrorist Attacks in the World from 1979 to 2021. So Ramadan 2001, just following the destruction of the World Trade Center, marked the end of public displays of religion. There were no more streets blocked off for Muslims to pray out of fear of security. Mosques were defaced. Death to Islam. It was a terrible time for Muslims, and that very first Ramadan, November 16 to December 16, just after September 11, was a very difficult time. And not just in the United States, but in Europe and many other countries. Of course, the Iraq War was part of this vicious anti-Muslim hysteria when George W. Bush, based on lies and fake news about weapons of mass destruction, launched the invasion of Iraq with waterboarding, torture, mass murder, war crimes that are still being ignored by the American government, was the result. See the book by David Ishkoff and David Gorn, The Inside Story of Spin, Scandal, and the Selling of the Iraq War, Hubris. Part of this vicious anti-Muslim backlash against a very real terrorist crime of 9/11. Donald Trump started limiting Muslim immigration, so-called Muslim ban. It wasn't an outright ban on Muslims, but it was a ban on Muslim populated countries, Iraq, Syria, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. In short, the admission of Muslims was strictly curtailed. And even Donald Trump started arguing that Muslims were a danger to the United States. Well, here again brings us into the world of fake news, where CNN wrote, Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what is going on. Technically, that's not true. CNN was not calling for a total ban. Okay? But here again, This is a big issue. Was he calling for a ban or was he not? Was CNN giving a false statement? Assaults grew in number and continue. We see the immediate post 9/11 number of assaults, and by 2016, it had increased rather than reduced. The big question with Muslims in America, are they going to assimilate? Is the melting pot, of which I am a perfect example, German, French from Alsace-Lorraine, Slovak from Czechoslovakia, and every other type of blood from Irish to English and Scottish is in me. I am a melting pot baby. Will the Muslims blend into the United States? Will they remain separate? And this is a big issue with multiculturalism. Are Orthodox Jews, are Muslims, are Chinese, are Mexicans willing to join in America, or do they remain loyal to Israel, China, India, Pakistan, or their Islamic identity? Is America going to be torn apart, as Samuel P. Huntington argues in his book, The Clash of Civilizations? He says that the country is going to be torn apart by admitting all of these non-Christian, non-white people, that America is headed towards a bloody civil war. And we see that now with this January 6th attack on the Capitol building, trying to halt the election and put Donald Trump back in the White House. These were dominated largely by white Christian racists who want to get rid of Muslims and Jews and Chinese and Pakistanis and all these other non-white Christian people. So that brings us to an end to this exciting lecture. Now there's me climbing up the pyramids of Egypt a long time ago. And I have been closely following what's happening in the Muslim world, having traveled in Egypt, Morocco, Senegal, Turkey, Indonesia. So I follow closely what is happening in the Muslim world. The chart on the left, the graph, shows that estimated by the year 2016, the Muslim population of the world will increase 70%. Christians 34, Hindus 27, Jews 15. So clearly, Islam and Muslims are a factor that the United States and the world have to take very seriously. Muslims today outnumber Jews in the state of Israel, causing Israel to clamp down to keep them reduced to second-class citizens. Burma just expelled a large part of its Muslim population to Bangladesh. India, under the BJP, vicious persecution, mass killing of Muslims. United States, Donald Trump's Muslim ban. So what is going to be the future of the Muslim world as we look at it today? Well, hard to tell. And this chart, this graph goes up to the year 2016. But will the Christian West be able to accept Muslims as part of our society? Will Israel ever be able to admit Muslims as equal participants in the future land of Israel, Palestine? These are all major questions that have to be asked. So thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions or issues, contact me at ronbrownmedia@gmail.com and I'll respond. I love feedback. And I wish you a very happy Ramadan the next time it happens. Contact your Muslim neighbors and friends and participate You might learn something, plus have some great food. So have a great time, enjoy yourself, and I hope to see you back in the near future for another exciting program by your favorite speaker, Dr. Ronald J. Briwn. Thank you very much. See you again.